Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashby. I'm an online personal trainer, body transformation coach, coaching people all over the world, helping them transform their body, build muscle, lose fat, and get stronger. And on this channel, I try to bring you some value in answering questions that you may have on your fitness journey. And in today's episode or video on YouTube, whatever you want to call it, I'm answering the question that I got on my Instagram stories. Is the shape of your chest genetic? Or what exercises can I do for an aesthetic chest build? So there's kind of two ways that we need to approach this question. The first one is answering if the shape of the chest is genetic, and the answer is yes. Genetically, we all have different frames, different places where we store fat, different rates at which our muscles build. Some people just have calf muscles that just explode. Some people just have big arms and they don't even really lift weights. And these are things that we can't change, like the shape of our chest. Some people have really full chests and they're just like huge. Some people have chests that kind of like don't go all the way in. Sometimes they kind of like fall a bit short. We can't really change that. We can't like pull our muscle fibers and move where they attach, but we can control how much muscle we have. So that's the first part of this deal that we're answering today. So it is genetic, we can't change it, but a saying that I like to say is like, we can't change how our muscles are structured or where they attach on the bone, but we can control how much muscle we do have. Now, moving into the next part of the question, what exercises can I do for an aesthetic chest build? Let's get into it. But before we think of exercise selection, there are a few things that we need to consider, and here are 4 things. When we're doing chest exercises, we want to bring our shoulder blades back and down when pressing because this gets the anterior deltoid away from being leveraged more than it needs to be. So if our chest is sticking out, I like to call it a Superman chest, then we expose our chest to lifting the weight. If we have a flat chest or even like rounded shoulders when we press, our anterior deltoids are going to take most of the weight and our chest is going to take a bit of a back seat. That means we're going to get muscle building potential for our shoulders as opposed to our chest. So in order to reverse that and hit the target muscle, which is the chest in chest exercises, we want shoulder blades back and down. That's going to expose your chest. So that's the first point, because if you don't do that, you're going to think you're training your chest, but you're actually going to be training your shoulders. Number 2, you want full range of motion, especially towards the bottom of the rep. So when we're doing things like barbell bench press, we don't want to bounce the weight off our chest, and we also don't want to come short and then press up. We want to make the most of the bottom of the rep because that's where we build the most muscle with chest exercises. The third point, we need to consider pausing in the stretched position, especially if you're struggling to build your chest, because the stretched position is where we build the most muscle. So if you're doing a chest press machine, but you're only going halfway and pushing up, you're missing out on where most of the gains are made. So you want to come all the way down and even consider pausing there so that you can really milk that point. And if you haven't spent time there, it's good to pause there because you will get rapid growth because your body hasn't really, or your chest hasn't really seen that stimulus before. And it's a really good way to make the most of it. And get into good habits of making most of that portion of the rep. Number 4, always prioritize technique before weight. AKA, don't ego lift, because nothing good happens from lifting weight that you can't handle with good technique. The only thing that happens is getting injured. So those are the 4 things that you should consider. And here are 3 things that you don't want to do when you're lifting weight for the chest or doing chest exercises. Shoulders off the bench when you're pressing. So I've seen quite a lot of people, when they press, they get to the top and they kind of round. So what I like to do, if my client is, actually I'll go like this. If my client's pressing, like let's say they're bench pressing this way, the bench is going up and down like that. If you're going like that, if you push the weight up, but your shoulder blades come off the bench like that, and I can put my hand underneath your shoulders and the bench and get it in there, that means that your shoulder blades were actually lifted forward and your shoulders are taking the weight instead of your chest. So that's what I like to do. So if you're bench pressing with a friend, when they press to the top of the rep, try and slip your finger underneath their shoulder blades. If you can do it, then they're not doing it correctly. They want to lock their shoulder blades back and down. That's a good tip that you can take that I do with my clients as a face-to-face personal trainer. Number 2, don't bounce the weight off your chest, particularly when you're benching. I've already talked about that point, so I won't spend too much time on it. And number 3, don't race the eccentric portion of the rep. and that is the lowering of the weight or the negative rep. So when we're doing any sort of pressing exercise, and even flies when we're bringing the weight down, that's where a lot of the muscle building occurs in the eccentric portion of the rep, as well as the stretch position. So you want to milk it for all it's worth. So you want to control it. Apparently the research is like, if you have a 3-second or 2-second eccentric or lowering of the weight, all the way up to like 8 or 9 or 10 seconds, it doesn't really matter in terms of what builds the most muscle. It just matters that it's controlled. So what we don't want with the lowering of the weight is just like kind of rocketing it down or just like letting the weight fall. We want to use our muscles to control the weight so that when we push up, it's nice and controlled and it's safe. That also helps to prevent injury as well. So it's another added bonus. Now, I want to wrap up this video with my personal favorite exercises that I like to program for my clients in Team Brock Ashby to build a big chest, and also ones that I like to do personally. I think this will give you a great list of exercises to include in your chest training. Obviously, this goes without saying, but technique has to be paramount. That is the biggest focus of nailing that. Otherwise, you're pretty much just doing shoulder exercises if you're not nailing the technique. So my personal favorite chest exercises, here we go. I have 6 of them for you today. Number 1, and this isn't order of priority, it's just literally what I wrote down when I was thinking about this. Number 1, incline dumbbell chest press with a neutral to 45-degree grip. So it's like holding the dumbbells like that. This allows me to get more range of motion than a barbell bench press and get a real deep stretch at the bottom. So I get a really sore chest when I lift decent amount of weight with this, and I make the most of that bottom position, and I control the eccentric nice and slow. 3 to 4 seconds on the way down, 1 second up, and when I press up and in. That is a really good chest exercise. Number 2 is just a flat bench press. It's not better than dumbbells. It's not worse. It's just different, but it does allow to lift more weight. So I like to do the flat bench press when I'm trying to do chest strength work. It still does build muscle, but it's a better exercise for strength than the dumbbells. Number 3 would be the weighted tricep dip. So if you can't do weighted tricep dips, that doesn't mean that this doesn't apply to you. You can still do assisted tricep dips, or you can do body weight tricep dips. It just kind of depends where you're at. But I like to do weighted because that's where I'm at my journey. So I will put anywhere between 20 to 40 kilos around my legs, depending on what sort of rep range I'm working with, and I'll do reps there, making sure I get full range of motion. And when I'm doing these dips, I'm getting my arms past 90 degrees. Actually, I'll use this arm here. So the minimum depth or range of motion is a 90-degree arm that I like to go for. But when I do it, I like to get an even deeper stretch in the chest and push lower than 90 degrees with the arms. Another way to kind of make it more chest and lower chest, or costal pec, if you want to get technical, is leaning slightly forward in the chest. This makes it a chest dip, not a tricep dip. So a tricep dip is when your body is upright. A chest dip is where your chest is a bit more forward and your knees are slightly back. It just biases the chest a little bit more. Number 4 would be the chest press machine, simply because it's a great exercise to go all the way to failure. With the barbell bench press and with dumbbells, I feel like you can't go as close to failure as you can with a chest press machine safely. And you can also load a lot of weight. I especially like the pin-loaded chest press machines as opposed to the plate-loaded, just because there's constant tension on the chest throughout. With chest press machines, I really don't like the hammer strength ones, because when you do the hammer strength ones, they're actually easiest at the bottom and hardest at the top. Where for an optimal chest exercise, we'd want it around the other way. We'd want it hardest at the bottom and easiest at the top. So it milks that stretch position of the chest. Number 5, incline cable crossover fly. So you're in a cable cell, and you have the 2 cables probably at about knee height or below, and you're coming up and you're crossing over your face and then coming down, and then you put the other hand over top like that. That's called a incline cable crossover fly. That's also one of my favorites. Obviously, you can't lift as much weight with a crossover fly, but that's not really the goal with this exercise, because a fly is always going to be a weaker exercise than a press, but you can still get a nice stretch at the bottom, and then when you come to the top, you get a nice contraction in the upper chest. Lastly, one of my favorite exercises to really burn out and push the body to fatigue, more so at the end of a chest or push workout, is a decline push-up with extra range of motion. So that is with your feet elevated and your hands elevated on dumbbells. This increases the range of motion. So instead of just doing a normal push-up where your nose hits the floor, you actually get to go a lot deeper than that because you have your hands elevated and you can kind of get your nose all the way down. So you get an extra, I don't even know how long that is. How long do you think that is, Dan? What's that? 10 centimeters. So you can get an extra 10 centimeters of range of motion by elevating your feet and your hands. I think that's a really good version of a push-up to build muscle in the chest then in comparison to a standard push-up. So hopefully this video has helped you, just give you, if not anything, a list of exercises to do, but also some technique things to consider and also answer your question around genetics and how your body is formed, especially your chest. If you like videos like this, I have a ton on my YouTube channel. Right here, I put a video that YouTube thinks you will enjoy. Click on that, watch more content. And if you have any questions that you want to be answered, let me know in the comments and I'll get to it. See you next time.